So our topic today is going to be body controls, operation, and diagnosis. These modern vehicles, they are just rolling computer networks, right? And everything's a module on the cars, right? So in order to cut down complexity, they say, and reduce weight, instead of having numerous relays and wires going everywhere, we're just going to kind of make just body control modules, little control modules. Maybe they control 50 things, maybe they control 3 things. I'm not sure. It depends on the vehicle, of course. But they say, it's to reduce complexity. Now, if I'm adding 50 more modules, I don't know if that's less complex, but I suppose maybe it's less wiring, but I think a module is a little more expensive than a couple feet of wire. But anyways, that's why they use the body control modules nowadays, right? So we think back to 2001, Chevy Tahoe. This body control module on this vehicle had 57 pins, and it connected to 11 different systems: door locks, power steering, power distribution, interior lights, exterior lights, horns, headlights, computer data for the network, anti-theft warning systems. That's really your earliest body control modules were mainly things like lighting, right? Lighting, locks, and windows, I guess, and things like that, right? So that's back, what we're looking at, 25 years ago, right? 25 years ago, it looked like that. Move up to 2016, so 10 years ago, on that Chevy Tahoe, 155 pins, so 155 wires hooked up to that thing. And it connected to 18 different systems. So we can see all the different systems there: door lock, suspension, headlights, horns, anti-theft again, trunk, taillight, fuel doors, starting and charging systems, all these different things, all these different inputs and outputs that it needs. So it's getting a little bit more complex. And of course, you would have more data PIDs to read, and more functional tests to do, and more things that you can control using that body control module as well. And then if we went up to 2021, just 5 years ago, 126 pins. So the pin count has lessened, but connected to 24 different systems now. So lighting, cruise control, wiper and washer, cooling fans, headlights, shift interlocks, trunk, tailgate, and fuel door again, seats, warning lights, horns, sounds, all these different things are controlled internally by these modules. And because of that, because those modules are able to control all these different things, it gives us a central location to test from. So if we change the way we think, change the way our brain thinks. I remember back when we first rolled out body control modules on Subarus. I went to Subaru school. This was 2005 model year. So that was, I know they were a little late to the party. They usually are. But anyways, I always remember what that instructor told us in that class is think about it different. Because now you have inputs and outputs. You don't have a switch, ground, and a relay, and all these other things. You have data, inputs, and outputs, which would be your bidirectional controls and data, I guess. But think about, I got switches, sensors, data come in, the inputs, and then the outputs are motors, lights, data again. So a lot of things are done over the network even at this point. So if we go back a little ways, and I think this was the '01 Tahoe as well. Left rear window switch, right? So you got a couple relays in there as part of it. And of course, when you hit the switch, the relay moves and closes, and then it makes it sends the power to the motor, right? One way is up and one way is down. So we have that available. So down would go down, up would go up, right? And that was relays, things like that. And then go up a little further, we got a logic board there on there now. So it still has the switch, but instead of having relays, it's going to have just this logic gate in here, and then it will send the correct command either up or down on the motor at that point, right? So power comes in, and then using this controller, it will move it up or down, right? And then if we get even newer, we have a LIN bus, right? So in this case, the LIN bus goes to the left rear window motor. So I press a switch, it sends a signal over the bus to the body control module. The body control module then processes it and sends it out to the window, right, to send it up or down. So that's how some vehicles work in that sense, right? And then here's a even newer one, like mid 2000s, a Cadillac, and this is just a straight logic board, right? So we have the switch as a separate entity over here, and then it just sends signals over to the logic board, which then sends out information to the motor. It's actually the motor's part. Never mind. I'm looking at this wrong. So the motor is part of this whole or the logic is part of the motor, right? So it's just sending a signal to the motor, and then all of that, all the power and the up and down and all that stuff happens within the motor assembly within the logic board there, right? So it's all kind of one assembly. Now let's think about modules on a vehicle, right? So I was talking earlier, you have tons of different modules, body control modules, etc. So some manufacturers use just one module. Some manufacturers will use multiple modules to control multiple different things on the vehicle. So this is a 2025 Kia Telluride. It's got a lot of stuff on it. And if we go into the body control module, under body controls, makes sense. Here's the different things that can be functioned with it. So wiper relays, headlamp washer relays, high-speed relay. Let's see. Security LED, headlamps, low beams, high beams, turn signals, fog lamps, power windows, central door locks, ATM solenoid, stop lamps, static bending left-hand output. I don't know what in the world that is, but LEDs, driver daytime running lights, puddle lamps, horn relays, flasher sound relays, internal buzzers, external buzzers, seatbelt indicators, assist seatbelt indicator, fog lamps again, mirror folding relay because it's got folding mirrors, heated handle output, keyholes, high lamp indicators, all the different indicators you can drive. So all of this three or four different pages of output controls just on that body control module, right? It has everything individualized. They also have an integrated central control module, which is a different body control module. It controls different things. But we also have, we do have fog lights again, backup lights. This seems to be mostly lights, right? Door lock relays, etc. Luggage lamps, mirror folding again, stop lamps. So they kind of work together. And when you want to customize the vehicle, you can go into, depending on what you want to customize, you go into either or. All right, lamp loads, long-term loads, front fog and cornering lamps, courtesy lamps, all sorts of different things. Child lock relay, long-term load cut, all these different things get controlled in different modules. If I go to a BMW, they have a couple different body modules, as we can see here. So the body domain controller, central gateway, roof function center. So if we go to body domain, they actually categorize theirs. So we can see window heating actuators, different ones, wash and wipe system actuators, steering column actuators. And if you go further in there, like for example, if I wanted to go into the washer and wipe system actuators, comes up with this. And then we see the washer pumps, front washer pump, windscreen wiper install position, rear wiper motors, etc. So at least they categorize it, make it a little easier to see. And then if we go into doors or windows, so we can see initialized power window regulator, starter motor lock, sleep mode, rain sensor initialization. So all those different things in there. Then if we get into a Volkswagen, in this case, the Volkswagen Taos, and you can see there is a lot of different things that they consider body control modules, right? But we're going to go into central electronics because that is the main body control module on this vehicle. And we can see different things like the lights and the fog lights and cluster fuel pump relays in there. Windshield wiper motor, washer pumps, footwell lighting, reverse. So it's mostly the lights are in the central gateway, right? Now, one thing that we take phone calls on, one thing I've gotten asked, I've had some discussions with people on this as well, is, well, I would just assume, and we know what happens when we assume, but I would assume that, hey, if I needed to do X, Y, Z, I would go into the module. So let's say, for example, I wanted to relearn a battery on this car. Logic would tell you it's probably under battery regulation, right? But that couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually in the diagnostic data interface gateway, because that makes sense. There's also steering angle calibration in there, because that makes sense. Variant coding, long coding, etc. So we have battery adaptation in there. When you replace the battery on the vehicle, you got to enter some digits, and then steering angle calibration, of course, for the steering angle sensor. But both of those are in the diagnostic data interface gateway, because I don't know. Let's just put it in there, I guess. I'm not sure. Now, because of that, not knowing where things might be, not knowing where a reset, a relearn, calibration, functional test, what have you, is one easy way of navigating that is if you have a tool with the service resets and relearns menu, it will give you job-based links to these different functions, even if they're in different modules. It'll pull them from all the different modules and bring it on the screen. So here's another example on that Volkswagen, right? Got 103 different service resets and relearns in there. And if I were to just go in here and hit replace battery and go into functional resets, now I can see that it is in the diagnostic data interface gateway, right? So then it just brings me right to it. I don't even know what module it's in. I just tap on that and then we're good, right? And then there's also another one inside battery regulation, which is battery parameterization when battery is replaced and encoding and configuration function. But those are not the same as the battery adaptation function. So there's multiple different functions on that vehicle that might need to be done. So kind of interesting. And if we go on the Tahoe, this has got a unique situation when it comes to body as well. So the brake pedal position sensor on this vehicle, when you replace it, it needs to be relearned in both the body control module and the ECM. So the BCM and the ECM. So if I were to click on this quick menu under brakes, go into functional resets and calibrations, and there we go. So this one's an engine, and this one's in body control module. So it labels them, right? So I have to do this learn first, and then I do this learn after, or it doesn't really matter what order you do it in, but you do have to do them both. Otherwise, you'll get a code if you don't do it in both, right? So, and did you know that? Maybe you did, but maybe you didn't. I know I certainly didn't know that until somebody told me about it a couple years ago. So, very good information to know. And once again, if you go into service resets and relearns menu, if you have a tool with that functionality, it brings the different functions to one place just based by job, like I said. And now let's talk a little bit about programming. So programming, I find, is generally more prevalent in body control modules than any other modules. There's some stuff you can do in other modules. And when I talk programming, the way I define programming is I am going to program the module to do something based on a preset list of options. So for example, in this body control module, I can go and set the auto lock time. So how long as I'm driving down the road before the doors automatically lock, right? So right now it's set at 0 seconds. I can tap on edit right there. And it's going to come in. It's going to give me a list of times in 10-second increments. Let's do 20. Now that it's set on 20, I hit program, and it programs it in. I'd hit program again, and then it programs it into the car, right? So I could do multiple different functions at a time while I'm doing this, right? So we go in, we program it to do 20 seconds, and as I'm driving down the road, it takes 20 seconds, and then the doors automatically lock. All right, so all these different things you can change. You can change, lighting a lot of times, and does it beep when I hit the fob, or do I have to hit the fob once to unlock all doors, or twice to hit unlock all doors, right? Those are the different kinds of options that usually are available within that body control module, right? So, all right, this one's a kind of a quicker class this week. So let's go in the shop and we'll talk about a few different other things that we might be able to do body related.
All right, so in this week's In the Shop segment, we're going to look at a couple different vehicles and how those manufacturers tend to sort through their body control modules. So in this case, I have a Porsche behind me, and we'll take a look at a few different operations that we can do. But if we scroll down to body controls on the tool, you see how they have them kind of separated out, right? So the front end electronics, rear end electronics, also gateway, and then the rear lid and the trailer hitch. If we go down a little bit further, though, we see that doors and windows all have individual modules as well, because of course Porsche, I guess. So your driver's door, passenger's door, rear left, rear right. And then if we go down, I think we got a couple more down. Yeah, like your headlights are separated out. Your seat controls are separated out individually. So depending on the manufacturer, sometimes it's just in the body control module, or sometimes it's a front module, a rear module. So let's take a look through a couple of these different modules as we go. So front end electronics. So we just got to go into the ECU. And if we go into, say, functional tests, actuator tests, so this module is going to control things like the headlights, right? So the marker light activations, hazard beams, windshield washer pumps, windshield washer wipers in the front, all the different things that are kind of like on the front end of the car. I guess that makes sense, being the front end electronics module. And then if we go to the back, we will go to the rear end electronics module. And that's that's going to be things such as the tail lights, brake lights, rear fog lights, tail lights, rear wiper, roof system as well. So close the roof, open the roof on the sliding roof, closing lid actuations, etc. So there's also at the bottom here we see teach roof console. So if you need to teach in the part after the fact, after you repair it. If we go into special functions, sliding roof and panorama roof standardization. So that's kind of to tell it where the stops are front to back if you do need to do any replacement of that sort of thing. But one thing I do want to show, so if we come down a little ways, like I said, they're separated out on this vehicle. But if we wanted to do, say, like the passenger's door, right? So the front door. And let's say, you know, maybe you had a problem with the mirror opening and closing, or maybe I did some window work and I need to raise or lower the window or something like that. So I can go to functional tests, actuator tests, and let's, first off, let's lower the window. Oh, actually, yeah, lower the window first. So we'll continue. Now in this case, a lot of, you know, Porsche, Volkswagen, Audi, a lot of those manufacturers, they don't necessarily provide data along with the functional test. Some manufacturers do, some manufacturers don't. In this case, it's just basically an on-off. So if I hit start, there we go, window goes down. Window's all the way down, runs it for like 10 seconds. So I can just hit stop at any time once I'm satisfied, hit exit, and then to raise it, it's going to be a different operation. So we'll go move power windows up. And then once again, we're overriding the controller to tell it to, you know, manually do this. So then we go there and we can see that the window goes up. Test complete. And then let's say I wanted to fold and unfold the mirrors. So maybe the auto folding wasn't working or something, or maybe I had just replaced them, or I need to replace them. So fold in the power mirrors, and we hit that, same deal. Hit start, closes up. I can hit stop at any time. And it basically just cancels the command, unfold the mirrors. Continue, start, unfolds the mirrors. Right, so easy bidirectional controls you can do. And as I said, you know, earlier in the presentation, a lot of times you do want to do those bidirectional controls to see, okay, is it an input, is it an output, where is my problem in that case. And then if we look back, I think under special functions, yeah, standardizing power windows. So if I had to do anything with the regulator, the motor, just a glass replacement even, that's going to teach in, you know, upper and lower limits to that. So that's going to be the test that would need to be done on this Porsche. All right, so in this example, let's look at body controls on this Jeep Compass. So on this vehicle, to get to the body controls, in this case, it is all just in the body control module, unlike some other vehicles we looked at where they were in separate modules, you know, different, every module was separate, right? So this is kind of like a master, everything goes through this on this vehicle. Like I said, some OEMs do it this way, some OEMs have them all separated out. So if we go into functional tests, that's going to be our bidirectionals. And we can see, like I said, it's everything. So backup lamps, ambient dimming, cargo lamps, door status LEDs, ceiling lights, front wipers, heated rear windows, left high beams, left low beams, stop turn lamps, lock all doors, power seats, rear window washer, rear window wiper. So let's say, for example, on this vehicle, maybe the customer complaint is, hey, the rear wiper is not working. All right. So normally, maybe you'd go back there and you'd start tearing things apart, checking for powers and grounds and things like that. But you can really just diagnose the majority of it just from the driver's seat if we think about splitting the circuit. So if I wanted to go to rear window wiper, another nice thing that we get on this vehicle is we're going to get data to go along with our functional test. Remember how we looked on the Porsche earlier, and it was just an on-off, right? So in this case, we actually have data. So I'm going to come down here on the right-hand side, and we should get to it is in pretty much alphabetical order. So we can see over here rear wiper and rear wiper switch. So what we could do is, first off, let's override the controller and let's just turn on the rear wiper from here, from the driver's seat. So we hit on and it turns on, right? So we can see it sweep back and forth. Then we tell it to turn off, it turns off, and it actually turns off wherever we stop it. So, all right. Now, we can also watch the data. As you observe the data there, you can see that the rear wiper said was on.
Now also we could look and check the rear wiper switch. So if we turn on the switch, we can see that it says active on the rear wiper switch. And we can also see that it says active on the rear wiper and the rear wiper is going. Now what if, for example, I went through and tried to, I was able to use the functional test to turn it on and it wiped. But then if I went here and turned on the switch and then nothing happened and it said rear wiper switch is not active, but I know I'm cycling the switch, then I know it's on the input side of things, right? Other side of the coin, if I hit on the rear window wiper functional test, the bidirectional control, and nothing happens, then I know it's going to be on the output side, at least, part of it's going to be on the output side. Now I would also, of course, want to check the data as well, make sure it's getting input. So let's say maybe rear wiper didn't work, and then I flipped the switch and then it said it was active, then I know that it's somewhere, on the way out. Maybe the motor itself, could be any of those things. So being able to split those circuits in half using functional test bidirectional controls and using the data, you can diagnose, at least narrow down where the problem might be just from the driver's seat.
All right. Good stuff. That was body controls and stuff. So yeah, I like being able to, if I can diagnose from the driver's seat, that makes my life a little bit easier. I always like telling that story because I was always the electrical diag guy and in the shop, and it wasn't the longest amount of time when we had those body control modules. Is more the other way, pre-body control modules. So I hated pulling panels off just to go check something silly in the back like that. So that makes life so much easier. Just kind of, like I said, that's why I kind of stuck in my head, because I did not enjoy doing that and pulling the panels off, and now I don't necessarily have to. I can do it from the driver's seat and not really have to worry using data and functional tests. So that is body. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about next week. Next week is AC diagnosis. So we're rolling back around to when it was super hot outside. It's getting a little cooler, at least in my neck of the woods. I know it's still hot elsewhere, but AC is very still top of mind. We are in August at the moment. So join me for that if you'd like. Every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central on YouTube and the Zoom. If you want to join on Zoom, the website's at the bottom at snapon.com/OT. You can go there, register yourself for a spot. And the other nice thing about attending the class on Zoom is you get a nice little certificate emailed to you the next day to prove that you were here. So if you want to, I know a lot of people like to collect those for like extended training and things of that nature. So definitely check that out. And then YouTube, of course. And then Wednesdays, it's on Facebook. So if the right-hand QR code brings you to our Facebook page, left-hand QR code brings us to our YouTube page. And, check it out every Tuesday, right? And Wednesday. If you want to see any of the other episodes in this series, anywhere from intro to ADOS down to pressure transducer diagnostics and everything in between, we got 147 episodes so far to choose from. So definitely, they're all about, 20, 30, 40 minutes, kind of depends on the topic and what we're talking about that day. So you can go check that out at your leisure. Go on a lunch break, go in a bathroom break, I guess. Most people, a lot of people watch the YouTube when they're hanging out in there. So yeah, sit around, learn a little bit more about diagnostics and just cars in general, I guess. So YouTube channel is youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics, and we do have a playlist for live training. Do we have your email address? If we don't have your email address, you're missing out on some good technical content like technical focus articles, SureTrack blogs, quick tips, new product releases. They send out my schedule periodically so you know what classes are coming up. So if you're not getting stuff like that sent to your email, scan that little QR code there. It's going to bring up a form you fill out. Give us your particulars, and you will start receiving those emails. So definitely good for that. All right, time for questions. If you do have questions and you're on Zoom, just find that Q&A button top or bottom of the screen and click on that, type them in, and I will get to those in a second. And if you're on YouTube and you're watching us live, use the live chat function in there, and I will talk to you there. So let me go to the Zoom first. Got a couple questions there. Bob says, hello and welcome from beautiful Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Yes, it is beautiful out there. I'm out there occasionally. And I did see that you had sent me a message on Facebook, and I just have not had a chance to read it through the whole thing. So I will definitely get back to you for sure. Let's see. Well, ATM solenoid stands for that's a really good question. You know what? Look it up. I'll look it up. 1 second. That is the not that. I say it's a transmission solenoid. It's not. Automatic transmission shift solenoid. It's really not. But I'll have to look it up somewhere else. That's a really good question. I don't usually get stumped, but I don't know off the top of my head, so I'll have to do a little bit of looking. Good question, though. Is that diagnosis by the seat of your pants? Yes. So sitting in the driver's seat, yes. Diagnosis from the seat of the pants. I could definitely call it that. That's really good. That's a good one. I think I might use that, right? Excellent. Thank you. And then Tanya says, hot as I'll get out here in Arkansas, 101. I'm looking at 107 tomorrow. Oh, I do not envy you. Yeah, and that's going to be hot in the shop for sure. Great class. Looking forward to AC next week. My specialty and always like to learn more. Excellent. Always be learning. Always be learning. I know I'm always learning. I'm going to learn what an ATM solenoid here is in a second. Let's see. So J. Lee Lobo on YouTube says hello, hello. And he says, you cannot stop learning if you want to improve your diagnostic skills. That is for sure. Always be learning. You can always learn something new. I learned on Sunday, I didn't think that a Ford Focus transmission was complicated enough to have a relearn for the shift lever position sensor. So I learned that existed. So I was working on a car from our show. So, and let's see, David on YouTube says, thanks, diagnosis from the driver's seat is nice. And I appreciate it. So yes, I appreciate you as well and all your comments. And with that, I think we're done. So I would like to say thank you for spending a little bit of time with me learning about body controls. Hopefully you'll join me next week for air conditioning. With that, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. Have a nice night and take care.